Do you like dark, interesting vistas? Do you like solving puzzles? What about exploring a dead civilization? Then Scorn might be for you. Well, as long as you can handle some terrible combat that ruins the pace of the game and really takes you out of the horror experience. Yeah, Scorn is a game that should have been a walking simulator that just focused on atmosphere and puzzles. Those aspects of the game are genuinely incredible, but I still find it hard to focus on those elements with the combat system so terrible I beat enemies by running in circles. Now, I love survival horror games. I'm not a stranger to a combat system that is a bit clunky in an attempt to leave you feeling vulnerable. I've played classic Resident Evil, I've played Alien Isolation, I have not played Silent Hill. I know, I'm a failure. Feel free to ignore my opinion. They suck anyway. I don't like Red Dead Redemption 2. What I'm about to say might prove controversial. Scorn should have just been a puzzle game with a great atmosphere and vague storytelling. Whenever I saw an enemy in Scorn, I either just sprinted full speed directly past it, or found a pillar where I went in a circle and poked them to death. I think size does matter. I hated every enemy I came across, and not for any good reasons. They didn't fill me with dread as they look even more pathetic than they are to kill. Avoiding them was not fun, fighting them was even less fun. That raises the question, why are they there? What is the point of having enemies that completely detracts from the rest of the experience? I don't have the answer to that officially, but it seems Scorn is a game that was too afraid to be labeled a walking simulator. That is partially on us gamers. Some of us do have a tendency to label any game we don't like that offers gameplay outside of the usual violence as a walking simulator. That's a bad way to look at video games, and video games should be encouraged to explore gameplay outside of violence. In 2022, being a walking sim should not be looked down on as a negative. One of my favorite games is What Remains of Edith Finch. What Remains of Edith Finch is a remarkable game with very light gameplay elements. You get to explore the lives of a family and how they interact together. It is a fantastic experience and doesn't have any enemies where I run in circles. Gone Home is a more controversial title, but I also enjoyed it. Exploring a childhood home as you figure out what is happening is a fun, engaging experience. Even if we look at other horror titles, Outlast doesn't have pointless combat and is a beloved horror series, even if I don't personally love it. Alien Isolation is another game that has combat but still makes you feel powerless against the enemy. That's because the alien is such an imposing entity and doesn't look pathetic. It is an enemy I wanted to avoid because I felt like it would kill me and not even break a sweat. The enemies in Scorn, however, are nowhere near as terrifying. They look pathetic. They don't offer the presence that other horror icons have. If they were removed from the game, it would just be a better game. Despite my complaints about the enemies, Scorn isn't a bad game. That's why the combat is so frustrating to me. The atmosphere offered is incredible. The visuals remain consistently interesting with such a unique art style. It is a gorgeously hideous game to look at. The puzzles are interesting and never too difficult to leave you stuck on one for too long. I really wanted to like Scorn a lot more than I actually do. Scorn offers such an interesting world that I wanted to get lost in. I wanted to explore the alien terrain. I want to learn what happened to this dead world. I wanted to make new friends. At least buy me dinner before you rearrange my guts. It's the least you could do. Scorn does a lot of good things. I just wish it didn't feel the need to have combat. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be a game designer. I honestly don't know what the team was going for when they designed the combat. It seems to me the idea behind it is to make you feel like a pathetic creature. Oh, I don't need any help with that. But the enemies themselves are so pathetic, I just feel bad for them. Frankly, anything killed by these blobs were never meant to survive as a species. Their complete lack of horrific presence just makes them a nuisance. They remind me quite a bit of the black tentacle creatures in Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 has the terrifying Baker family. They stalk you throughout your journey, and they seem nearly undefeatable. They have such personality and help make Resident Evil 7 a truly amazing horror experience. There were also the black tentacle creatures that just completely wasted your time and were pretty much unanimously despised for their poor design and lack of real threat. Now, the enemy design in Scorn is certainly better than those unremarkable black tentacles, but the combat is nowhere near as fun as it was in Resident Evil 7. Personally, I'd rather have good combat with unremarkable enemies than horrific combat with okay enemy design. Honestly, Scorn reminds me a bit of Soma. Soma was a very interesting world and story, but avoiding monsters was just a nuisance. It's important to consider how player adversity is incorporated into the game and make sure it doesn't take the player completely out of the experience. Another thing to consider when it comes to Scorn is the price. The game is being sold for around $36 and can be beaten in around 5 to 6 hours, depending on how good you are at puzzles. The price is expensive, but in my opinion, it is warranted. Scorn is a niche game that appeals to a limited audience. I know I'd rather have more games in a genre I love and pay a bit more than just not have any more games. On the flip side of this, the game is also available on Game Pass Day 1. That is where I played it, and if you already subscribed to the service, I definitely recommend checking the game out. At the end of the day, video games are supposed to be enjoyable. While combat can be clunky in an interesting way, Scorn just doesn't offer that. If you think you can handle some atrocious combat, Scorn offers a truly unique world to explore that can leave you with plenty to think about. It's a shame because I could see Scorn being such an easy recommendation if it just didn't have that terrible combat. As is, however, Scorn has an asterisk next to that recommendation. However, if you do have Game Pass, then definitely give it a try. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and have a great day.